So I was trying to find his resting place. I was trying to find his grave. And there's a website called Find a Grave for those of you who don't know, and you can put valuable information in and you can find people's resting places if they're listed. I wasn't finding anything, and even if I would have found a grave or two with his name on it, I didn't know if it was him because I didn't know anything. So that's when I decided to take a DNA test.
Today on the We Share podcast, we're joined by Debbie Olsen. She's a certified life coach and founder of DNA Surprise Network. Welcome to the We Share podcast. I'm Julie.
I'm Alex.
We share ourselves and we provide a platform for others to share.
We believe everyone has a purpose and a story to tell.
And we're back on the We Share podcast. I'm Julie.
And I'm Alex.
We promised Debbie 2.0, and here she is.
Debbie's back.
She's back. All right, but a completely different concept than when we
This is a different side of Debbie.
Yeah, so introduce her again with the thoughts that we're going to be sharing today.
All right, so Debbie Olsen, welcome back.
Thank you.
Besides the Avanti Body business co-owner with her husband, she has been a life coach and does DNA Now. Did I say that right?
It's DNA Surprise Network, but that's okay.
DNA Surprise Network. And so we are going to dive into that and find out a little bit about her story, her DNA surprise, and what she's doing to help others.
Well, first off, thanks for joining us again.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, let's start with your story because I think that is important. It's the foundation of why you do this work.
Yes, absolutely. So I was raised to believe that my biological dad did not want me, and then was later told as an adult that he was deceased. I was adopted by my stepdad when I was 6 and just always lived my life accordingly. I initially started looking for my biological dad's resting place. I looked for his grave, and he has quite a common name, and I could never find it. And I didn't know. Growing up, we weren't really allowed to ask questions about him. He was sort of pushed out of our lives under the rug. You know, we didn't really get to have an opportunity. I have 2 full siblings, so when I say we, I'm referring to them as well. But we didn't get a really have questions or be curious or those kinds of things. And so I didn't really know how to go about finding his resting place. Didn't know his birth date, didn't know his middle name, just had not a lot to go on.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of
Did
course.
you know anything about him before the stepdad came in? Do you have memories that you can remember?
I don't. I'm 6 and 7 years younger than my siblings. And so they have memories with him. They actually got to spend a summer with him. I was too young, so I didn't go. So I have no memories at all of my biological dad before.
How is your relationship with your mom after her doing that?
Gosh, all the relationships are rough now. The raised family relationships are a little more challenging now. My mom's pretty sick. She's got dementia. And so she doesn't actually know that we've found our dad. We just chose not to tell her. Don't want to add to the discomfort she's already in. Right. So
that's kind of you.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's all just been really hard, but on one hand, it's been hard. It definitely changes things for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let me clear up something in my brain that maybe somebody else is thinking too. So was there a fabricated story about your biological father's death?
Just that he was in a car accident and died.
So no details, no nothing, just we're not going to talk about this. He's moved on and this is your life.
So my dad is from Salt Lake City area. My mom is from Spanish Fork, Provo area. So they've always had connections there with friends and family. We were a little bit isolated from everybody because I think we were kind of, for lack of a better word, put in hiding. I often will use the words we were kidnapped because we were taken away and our names were changed. So he couldn't find us.
That's really a step.
Your names were changed?
Well, my stepdad adopted us, and so when he adopted us, our last names changed with the adoption. Our birth certificates were modified. That's how all this stuff works, right? That's why in DNA land, as I call it, it becomes such a slippery slope.
Right.
Because all of, information changes, and it's
She made it hard for him to find you. How'd your dad wanted to find you?
He looked for us. Yeah. So I was trying to find his resting place. I was trying to find his grave. And there's a website called Find a Grave for those of you who don't know, and you can put valuable information in, and you can find people's resting places if they're listed. I wasn't finding anything. And even if I would have found a grave or two with his name on it, I didn't know if it was him because I didn't know anything. So that's when I decided to take a DNA test. Took the DNA test, obviously had paternal and maternal matches. I didn't have a paternal match that was close enough that it was really doing me any good. So I was frustrated. I closed it. I never looked at it again. I got a couple of emails via the site. I took Ancestry the first time. And then I got an email from a girl asking me a lot of very specific personal questions. And I'm like, how does this girl know these things? For example, my siblings' names. She said, do you know these two? And I was like, well, yeah, I do, but how do you? So it was kind of interesting. But I just answered her questions. I'm like, I have nothing to lose. And I answered her questions. And then she eventually said, I'm your sister. We have the same dad. Then I said to her, oh, I had no idea I had a sibling, outside of the two I was raised with. But I understand our dad's deceased. And she said he's not. We live in Canada. You have a brother and myself. We've been looking for you. I can't believe that we finally found you.
You doubled your family.
I doubled my family. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he was looking for you. He clearly wasn't hiding you. Like,
Correct.
my ex-wife took the kids, married, changed their names. I lost 3 kids, essentially.
Right. Essentially, yes, that's it in a nutshell. He had a very few photos of us. So he had like 2 school pictures of my siblings, like, grade school pictures. And then like one of me as a newborn and one of me when I'm about 3. So we had 2 pictures of each of us in a little frame hanging on his wall. And he never did not have those hanging up. He would do things like write to the DMV, saying, this is my son's name, my daughter's name. She should be getting her driver's license about now. I can't find her. Can you help me? Of course, he's not going to get any information, right? He just kind of, I don't think he gave up, but he gave up.
Yeah.
Well, he felt like he was at a dead end.
Right.
Yeah. The 2 older siblings of yours, brother and a sister, did they want to get involved in this and find your father? Did they want to take DNA tests? Did they have any kind of part of this journey?
I didn't tell anyone I was doing it, so no.
Okay.
I was sort of on my own path. I didn't really know what I was going to find, and I honestly don't think I ever thought I was going to find my dad, right? I mean, I thought I'll find his cousin who will say something nice about him to me.
Right, because you thought he was dead.
Right. And so that was my goal. My goal was to find a cousin, an aunt, somebody that knew him that would say he was a good person and here's these things about your dad that you might want to know. That was literally my goal, and that's what I thought was going to happen. But I got way more than I bargained for.
Yeah, you got a dad and a brother and sister.
Okay, tell us about the reuniting of that. What was that experience like?
So my dad remarried a woman from Canada, and he relocated there. So that's where he's lived this whole time, is in Canada, and with my 2 siblings live there, of course. Because of technology, we were able to do video chats. And so the first time that I met them was via video chat. We did a few of those. I found him in May. And in September, Shane and I went, my husband and I went and met them in person. And it's been amazing. I feel very, very lucky. Not everyone's stories end the way mine has. I have a great relationship with all of them. I try to go every 3 months or so up to Canada to spend time with them and, be part of their lives and that kind of thing. And we talk often. We do video chats still. We talk that way. And so, I mean, I feel very, very lucky.
Do you see yourself in him? Do you see any characteristics?
I do see. It's interesting because I see my brother in him.
Okay.
Sometimes he'll make faces, or when he first pops up on the screen, I'm like, "That's my brother," and then, "Oh yeah, it's Dad," So stuff like that. But my siblings will go, "Dad does that." Like they'll point it out to me, or my sister when I've posted photos of her. My friends are like, "Oh my gosh, you guys look so much alike." Mm-hmm. Having said that, I think I look so much like my mom, but genetics are interesting, right?
You can pull him.
So,
yeah.
So
did you start calling him Dad right away?
Yes. Yep.
Because I'm sure in the work you do now, that's kind of a weird transition for people. It's probably one of the unexpected speed bumps is I don't know how to refer to this person.
Yeah. I don't think that was ever a thing for him and I. I don't think he had or even has any expectations. He initially was kind of like, yeah, I'm your dad, but I can't tell you what to do because I didn't raise you. And he sort of was a little bit, he was very aware of that, that that's not necessarily the role he played in my life. And I see it completely the opposite. I mean, obviously I'm an adult and he can only tell me what to do
Yeah,
to a
I'm
certain
like,
degree, whether
Debbie,
I pay
you
attention
know
to
what
it
to
or
do.
not. But at the same time, I still very much view him as a dad and respect him and value his opinions and guidance and all of those things. For me, it didn't, there was no hesitation for me.
I love that. And you were able to fill that void, that place that had been missing.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so you have this foundation. You had this experience. It turned out good for you. You then realized, I want to help people with this. Tell us about that portion of it.
So I was already training to be a life coach and didn't really know where I was going to take that, that training. And then all of this happened. And lots of people don't know that DNA testing and finding these things out is very much up and coming. People are, as I was talking to you guys earlier, they're taking DNA tests and finding out they're adopted or their donor conceived or their mom had an affair or, whatever. There's lots of different dynamics. It doesn't always have to be a shady thing. But they find out their dads aren't their dads. Or sometimes their moms aren't their moms. It just kind of depends. And so having this experience and trying to find support was hard. And so with that, I was like, I have this training and I can help people. And so I started coaching people through what I created as DNA Surprise Network. And then since then, as I said, I'm almost 6 years into my reunion. But since then, I've become the director of support for an organization called Right to Know. It's Right to Know Your Genetic Identity. We do a conference every year or every other year. Our website has so much information, so much support. We do Zoom calls weekly. We do webinars. We can help you find a therapist or a mentor, or there's just so many things. So I've really just thrived in that community, and I love it.
Yeah, we were talking about the range of surprises that can happen here. I do a crime podcast. I didn't cover this story, but I researched it just briefly, trying to decide if I wanted to cover it. It was about 3 months ago. DNA solved a murder. The granddaughter took the test. And when I say granddaughter, she's not like 17. She's like in her 30s. Took the test. Then that put her profile into the network. They were able to link to that and figured out that her grandmother had actually killed somebody. And they had the DNA on file, but they didn't have a match to it.
Right.
And then when they ran it, it went through the granddaughter to the grandma, and they figured out the murder. So that's a very extreme version of it. What are some situations that you have seen in DNA surprises that are both good and bad or whatever? Any that you can share with us?
So one of the gentlemen that's on the board with us, I don't think he would mind me just sharing. He's pretty public with his story. His name's Brad, and he in front of his parents said, "I'm going to take a DNA test," and they didn't say anything, and he ends up ultimately taking the DNA test and finding out he's adopted. As his story goes along, Brad's a police officer on the bomb squad, all these things. Finds out who his biological parents are. I believe his mom was already deceased, but his dad was in jail for murder.
Wow.
So Brad's story ends very, very well. He has a relationship with his dad. He actually was beneficial in helping get his dad out of prison. And, they have a great relationship now, happy ending, that kind of thing. But really interesting to find out you're adopted, you're a police officer, your dad's in jail for murder. So that's one. There's so many stories. People are finding out, they're raised in one ethnicity or in one religion, culture, and then they take a DNA test and find out they're African American or Jewish or, whatever. So that can be really hard for some people.
Mm-hmm. That's the way it's touched my life. I haven't taken a DNA test. I've tried twice to send it off, one to two different companies. And I shouldn't say send it off, to have a kit sent to me. And neither time did it come through and work. And I'm very tech savvy. I buy stuff on the internet all the time. I run computers all the time. Mm-hmm. There should be no reason that those tests didn't come to me. I've kind of taken it by this.
Like you're not supposed to know?
Yes, I'm not supposed to know. Like God is saying, something's here that you don't want to see. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I'll accept that. But I did get contacted by some family. This was almost it'll be 3 years ago this summer, that I have an entire Mexican heritage I had no idea about. I had an adoptive great grandpa. we didn't know he was adopted until, at least I didn't, until I went to a distant relative's birthday party, and they told me they had just figured it out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense, because my skin is much darker than other family members, and I'm like, why can I tan so well? What's going on?
Right.
Well, that DNA was coming through. That heritage was coming through.
I believe that, back in the day when girls found themselves pregnant, it was so shameful.
Right. They just kind of.
Yeah. I think there was such a stigma of, having sex at a young age, or, so many different things. Right. And I think
or even with the wrong guy.
With the wrong guy. Right. Yeah. And I think that because of that, back when, I'm hoping that it's not going to stay that way forever. People were shamed, and they were forced to make choices that they maybe wouldn't have made. And that led to these kinds of things.
Yeah, these scenarios. But about adoption, it's fairly common. It blows me away that people just can't tell their kids they're adopted.
And I think it was this, I think that there was a time when it was, we're going to protect you by not letting you know that you were adopted. The other side of that is, genetically, you're not related to your parents, and so your health things are going to be different. And I can't tell you how many stories I hear of women who think they're predisposed to certain types of cancers, or this or that or the other thing, and they go and have all this genetic testing done, or, go as far as having surgeries and things done that they didn't have to do because they're not related to their parents.
Wow.
So that's the other side of it. If anybody's keeping a DNA secret from someone, that's important. Your genetics and your health it's really important.
I would completely agree with that. I have a friend who has a mother who's adopted, and she won't search out her family or anything. She refuses. And there's been some pretty major health issues with the kids. And they've asked her, please, can we look for it? And she said, no, I don't want you to look at all. Da, da, da. And so they don't have that health history.
Yeah. So with health concerns, 23andMe is a pretty good. I took Ancestry and then later did 23andMe. 23andMe is a bit more health focused. And I don't necessarily encourage this, but just knowing the person that I am, I would do it anyway.
Really?
I would take the test. Yeah.
Just take it and just suffer whatever.
Deal with your reality.
Yeah. Is there one service that is better than the other? Do you promote a service or a handful of them, and then maybe stay away from some others, or are they pretty much the same?
Only really know about Ancestry or 23andMe. I think ethnicity-wise, and if you're looking specifically for people, I would suggest Ancestry. I think that they have a bit more, their website's a bit, their outreach is a bit bigger, so you're going to get a bit more definite information. I can't think of the word I'm looking for.
Specifics.
More specific information,
definitive.
yes. As far, they break down your ethnicity a little more, and again, their database is a bit bigger, so you might get more matches. 23andMe is more health-focused. You're still going to get matches, that kind of thing. But you're going to get more health information. They give you a bit more information about, probability for diseases and different things like that. Both of them require a membership to get really, really detailed stuff, which I'm assuming you can get the membership and cancel it at a certain point, whatever, I don't know how it works. I've never done it. I know Ancestry has, they're starting to track records. So they'll put photographs of, there's photographs of my grandparents on there that I didn't put on. So obviously someone had to have. So
That's
they
crazy.
do have that kind of stuff on there as well. So it just kind of depends. There's another organization called DNA Angels, only with one A, DNA Angels. And they help people find their genetic family. They'll help you find a biological parent for free. If you're trying to find a outside of parents, they do charge a little fee. They don't charge very much. They're 100% volunteer ran, and they use Ancestry.
Oh my gosh, that's God's work.
I know. Well, there's refugees. There's a lot of people that need help.
And a lot of people who need help who wouldn't have the capability to search it out without volunteer services. Wow. Okay. If people are listening to this podcast and they want to reach out to you to figure out how to get part of this or whatever,
Some
coaching
yeah.
from you, things like that, how do you want them to reach for you?
They can do through my website or through Right to Know, both. So my email address is Debbie, Debbie, @righttoknow.us. and it's RIGHTTOKNOW, or Debbie at DNA Surprise Network.
Okay. I think that this is fascinating.
And then DNASurpriseNetwork.com website.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fascinating. All right. What would you like to leave that we haven't talked about this DNA surprises? What would you like to leave with our audience?
I think everybody tends to be in a big hurry when they find these things out. And I would just invite you, if you're in the middle of a DNA surprise or think you might have a DNA surprise, to go slow. Just be mindful of the aftermath and things. It can destroy relationships. It can make relationships closer. There's lots of scenarios. So just go slow.
I like that advice because let's say you figure out a DNA surprise and you're 34. You've lived 34 years without knowing. Why do you have to then slam it through as fast as you possibly can? And I like that.
I do
bit of
imagine,
advice.
though, the emotions that come up. There's a gamut of them, I'm sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't even, especially if it's a one like yours.
Yeah.
Very drastic one.
Find a trusted friend. Find someone you can talk to. One of the things that people that have DNA surprises really struggle with is, well, you're still you. You're not changed. You're not different. Well, actually, I am. I just found out that this person doesn't belong to me, or there's lots of different things
Or
that come up.
I think it's knowing that something's been hidden from you or kept from you, right? Like
Right.
we all want truth, right? We're
Yeah.
seeking truth. And so if you have like information that's been hidden from you, you feel like it's not a good feeling.
Yeah, well, and there's
In
no way you
anything.
couldn't be different. If you're like a tree and you just grew 4 new limbs overnight,
Right.
that's different.
Right. You're like, and suddenly I'm not a maple tree. I'm an oak tree. What?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for being
Yes,
so
thank
helpful
you.
to people. Like I
Thank
just
you.
said, I think that's God's work. I think this is for a group of people a very difficult process, hard to navigate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for doing it.
Thanks,
Yes,
Debbie.
thank you.
Thanks for joining us today on the We Share podcast.
If you've loved what you've heard, please give us a 5-star rating. Tell your friends and share this show.
You can also follow us for recipes, lifestyle and fashion tips, book reviews, and more on WeSharePodcast.com.
Join our Share Squad and sign up for our newsletter there.
We would love to connect with you.
We share on TikTok, Pinterest, Facebook, and Instagram. Give us a follow.
A big goodbye squeeze and sending you all our love from Alex and Julie.
Join us next week on the We Share podcast.